Okay, can I get the, can I call the meeting to order, please? So welcome everyone to the Monday, January 22nd, 6:30 p.m. We're a little bit late, we're half an hour late, and I apologize for that. We had some business that we had to finish up in Committee of the Whole. So I am going to ask we're going to start the meeting this evening with a land acknowledgement, as always, and I have Councillor Sullivan who's on for that tonight. Councillor, over to you, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The land on which the city of St. John, or Metaquist, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. The Wolastoqiyik, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and the Pescatomakati, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let's take a moment to pause and reflect.
Okay, and so now I will ask us all to stand for Okanda. And City Clerk, I'm going to get you to introduce the team that's singing. Oh.
Yeah, we have special guests tonight that we're happy to introduce from the city's communications department, Aaron White and Chris Roberts.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras, c'est porter le pays, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Yeah. Get back here. Thank you to our own Aaron White and Chris Roberts. Now that was at apparently the request of our fire chief, Kevin Clifford, who's here. So I'm happy that you two took it upon yourselves to come up with for him to honor his request. And it's apparently his last meeting with us as the fire chief. So now, according to history, the fire chief, once they retire from the city, then they run for office. So, Chief, you said you might consider it. I just want to hear that again from your lips here while we have it on TV.
No.
What?
But I could be back.
But well, there you go. That gives us a little bit of hope. Okay. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. First item on the agenda is item 2.1, minutes of January the 8th.
Minutes of January the 8th. I'll take a mover, the deputy, and a seconder. Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is the approval of the agenda, and we do have 4 additions coming from Committee of the Whole meeting. First one would be 17.1, request for expression of interest for 21 Troop Street. Item 17.2, 2024 Community Center and Neighborhood Agreements. Item 17.3, St. John Energy FCM loan. And 17.4, Code of Conduct complaint.
Okay, so I'll take a mover and a seconder for the agenda with the additions. The deputy and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next, disclosures of conflict of interest, if we have any.
Not seeing any. Next item.
Next is the consent agenda.
Over to you, Deputy, for the consent agenda.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move 5.1 through to 5.8, please.
Thank you. I'll take a seconder on that. Councillor Sullivan on the question. Councillor Radwan, over to you first.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to bring attention for the residents, 5.4, the insurance renewal. Staff have worked really hard to try to get good rates for the city, and the city's still paying $1.9 million, which is such a huge cost. So sometimes we get asked questions, where is all the money going? And that's a big chunk of change. So I just wanted to bring attention to it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lowe, over to you next.
I get a question on 5.6. I want to thank everyone that has done Tin Can Beach. It's beautiful down there. It's getting a great amount of cars coming down, but there's 10 bases for lights, and it'd be nice when it's lit up. So I'm just curious as to when the lights, I know that they were back ordered because I had asked the gentleman in December. I'd just like to know when they're going to arrive.
Mr. Baker, over to you for the answer to that one.
Through your worship to the councillor, the lights are planned to actually arrive in February. So the contractor does plan on installing them in February, basically assuming that they can get their lines through the ducts. If they're full of water and frozen, then we would have to wait until the spring. But the plan is that they're going to go out in February and try and install those lights when they come in.
That's excellent. And they have cans over all the bases. So I think that the water, there's a couple of them kicked off. I think there's 8 out of the 10 have the cans over them. So they should be dry enough. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder on that. So I'll call the question on the consent agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Lowe, you asked about 5.6. I think it's 428,000. It'll go from Broadview right down to Tin Can Beach, the extension of the harbor passage. So that's great. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 6, members' comments.
Members' comments. Okey-dokey. Councillor Radwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, Chief Clifford, we'll miss you so much. I also wanted to mention a few things. Bell Let's Talk is this Wednesday on the 24th. That's why my colors, I was trying to help them brand. Mental health is such a huge challenge for many folks in our community, so it's very important. On the 30th as well, it's a day to combat Islamophobia, and Islamophobia is actually the top the most common form of prejudice in North America. So I just wanted to bring attention to that. And I just wanted to quickly let everybody know a story. There's a gentleman, his name is Adi Olenode, and he was a student here, international student that came from Nigeria to NBCC. Unfortunately, he passed away on January the 10th of cardiac arrest, and I had a great opportunity of meeting this young man. Last year, I decided to try to take a new resident to every Chamber of Commerce mixer to try to help them meet some new people, show them how to network if they're not comfortable. And I went with one student and ended up, by the time I was done one night, I ended up with 3. And Addie was one of those students, bright, very motivated MBA student, he's an MBCC student, and lovely gentleman. So our community is really grieving there, and my sincerest condolences to everyone.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I'll dedicate my comments today to Chief Clifford. Unfortunately, I have my back to him as I offer them, but in 44 years of service at every level of fire service in St. John, something pretty incredible. The year I was born, he was 16 years into his service already at the city, so I've got some catch up to do. He's also the 3rd generation of Clifford to serve in St. John Fire. And I just want to recognize that under his leadership, the chief has seen an incredible time and change over those 4 decades at City Hall, and has certainly come to shape the quality, modern, and effective fire service we have today. And just as certainly as serving as chair of the Public Safety Committee has been invaluable as their staff lead to that committee as well, and thank him for his service to both fire and public safety in the community, as well as his incredible work with our EMO team. I know we will do so formally in thanking Chief Clifford, but I just wanted to offer that massive thank you from my seat.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. I will say, Councillor Hickey, you certainly know how to rub in someone's age. I was 16. Chief, I will add on to that. You have had an incredible career here in the city of St. John, and you have seen a lot of change. And I have learned a lot from you over the years as my role as a councillor, and right along through, there's always something I learned from you and your team. And I guess what I'll say I admire the most about you is that you've managed to pull together a very tight team, and that's tough to do a lot of times. And you have, that loyalty amongst your team. It's there's a lot of camaraderie with your team, and I think that's a real credit to you and your leadership. So thanks again for all of those years working in the city of St. John, those 44 years. And I do know that you come from a long line of firefighters, and it's an interesting career, and it's one that we forget how dangerous it is in some ways because of all of the new materials. And you and I have talked about this, that, the materials that buildings are made from today are all designed for weight. And there's a lot of resins and glues and a lot of those substances in materials today that are very, very flammable and can impact the integrity of a building within minutes of a fire. So, always very tricky. And then there's all the off-gassing from a lot of those things as well. So it's not a straightforward, simple career that we often, think it is. And I've seen it in the wintertime. It's difficult to have you be putting that water everywhere, and your team is trying to get over that water as it's freezing, and you have then ice and sand coming in. It's a quite the job, and you really need to be able to pivot at any minute and to be able to respond to whatever is happening, and it could be anything. So appreciate all the time that you've had in St. John, and great job, great team, and sorry to see you go, but at the end of the day, it's a new beginning as well. You've got grandchildren as well who I'm sure will appreciate seeing you more. So anyways, like I said, I hope we'll see you at least in the audience if you're not going to run for council. And if you do run for council, I'll run again too. Thanks, Chief. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Worship. I echo everything that was said here about the chief, but one thing that I don't think most people realize is, I can or council can get an email at 2:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, there's a fire on such a street. And you're thinking, you're the chief of fire. The fire chief is at a fire at 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's not a 9-to-5 job. And I'll tell you, I don't know too many people that would want to do it, but I'll tell you, you have a lot of respect for myself and the people around this table and the citizens of St. John. So thank you very much for your service, Chief.
Thank you, Deputy. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item is under consideration of bylaws, item 10.1 on the agenda, and it's a zoning bylaw amendment at 89 to 91 Redhead Road, third reading with rescission of previous section 59 conditions.
Thank you. Acting Commissioner Pofferoff, over to you.
Thank you. Your Worship and members of council, before you this evening for third reading is a rezoning in section 59 application, which was submitted by Joe Roberts for the property located at 89 to 91 Redhead Road. This application seeks to rescind the existing section 59 conditions and rezone the property from R2, 2-unit residential, to CG, general commercial, to facilitate the development of a parking lot for an existing commercial business. The application did receive first and second reading on December 11th, 2023, following the required public hearing, and I can confirm that all legislative requirements of the Community Planning Act have been met, and the item is now before you to move forward with third reading. And Thomas Llewellyn, one of our planners, is available if there are any questions. Thank you.
Okay, City Clerk, over to you for the motions we need.
Thank you, Your Worship. So 3 motions for this one, third reading in entirety, third reading by title, and then rescission of the previous Section 59 conditions.
Okay, so approval of reading by entirety. The Deputy and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
This is entitled A Law to Amend the Zoning Bylaw of the City of St. John. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by amending Schedule A, the zoning map of the City of St. John, by rezoning a piece of land having an area of approximately 319 square meters located at 91 Redhead Road, also identified as PID number 003-44457, from 2-unit residential to general commercial. Now another motions required for third reading by title, Your Worship.
Third reading by title. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Okay, and the last motion is the recession of previous Section 3959 conditions. The Deputy and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next item, City Clerk.
Next is 10.2. This is a first and second reading consideration for McNamara Drive speed limit reduction traffic bylaw amendment.
Thank you. Over to you, Acting Commissioner Poffenroff. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. No, it's not going over to you. It's going to Mr. Hugenholtz.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Before you this evening is the first reading of a bylaw amendment to our traffic bylaw to change the speed limit from 50 to 40 kilometers per hour on McNamara Drive. At the last meeting of council, there was a report from the Public Safety Committee with the results of a trial of the speed cushions on McNamara, and we're pleased to say that that was very successful and did have the impact of reducing traffic on that, or vehicle speeds on that section of road. Before you this evening, the bylaw changes would change permanently the speed limit on that to 40 kilometers per hour. With that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. City Clerk, over to you for the motions required.
Only 2 motions required here. First reading by title and second reading by title.
Okay, first reading by title, it's Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the City of St. John, bylaw MV 10.1, and amendments thereto.
Okay. And I'll need a second motion for a second reading. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the City of St. John, bylaw MV 10.1, and amendments thereto.
Okay. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is 12.1. It's a staff submission entitled The Cove Funding Agreement.
This one is back to you, Commissioner Hugenholtz.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. In recent years, we've been able to add several new sections to Harbor Passage, which continues to be a significant linear park and active transportation corridor for residents and visitors alike. Lots of work still to occur, including wrapping Harbor Passage around the South Central Peninsula to Rockwood Park. And the passage is also planned to link to the west side. And we're excited to announce today that an important step in that direction will be taken. I'll pass it over now to Director O'Reilly to share with you the details.
Director, over to you.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. And so very happy to announce this evening for council a partnership opportunity with the federal government to help fund another expansion of Harbor Passage, about a 400-meter section. Of course, council has within a strategic plan to move up to 20% of trips made by active transportation. So you've committed to that over the next 10 years. 2 weeks ago, you just had your presentation about your community energy action plan, which of course requires people to move away from vehicles and more active sustainable modes of transportation. And of course, we have our transportation plan that, again, provides that opportunity for people to switch from, again, vehicles over to other modes of transportation. All that requires work in order to accomplish that. And as Commissioner Huguenot mentioned, certainly Harbor Passage itself has been a huge success and very effective at getting people out of their vehicle, and whether it's recreation, health, or to get from point A to point B, it's been a huge success in terms of use within our community. This map on the screen now just shows the overall view of Harbor Passage's entirety. The entire length of Harbor Passage, as envisioned, is about 11 kilometers in length. We are almost halfway there, about 5 kilometers of the 11 kilometers are fully constructed. On this map, the yellow sections are actually fully completed now. The red is yet to go. The pink area on the map is actually Italian Makahamek, which of course is going to be constructed in 2024. That's about a 400 to 500 meter section. And then tonight I'm talking about a section within the blue on the screen, which is called the Cove. This is going to be an off-road component of Harbor Passage, which is very, again, useful for people who want to get off the street and access different parts of our community. This particular section is going to make an important link between the Douglas Avenue, Versing Falls area to get into the Lower West. Riverview Avenue and Riverview Drive both have sidewalks on them, and this off-road passage is going to make that connection between the two for people who want to get into the Lower West End. So with both the section being constructed this year and the Cove, we're going to be over halfway completed the entire stretch of Harbor Passage in terms of overall vision. So the red line on this map is the actual section that would be constructed as part of this funding agreement. Again, making that connection into Lower West. As I think I've mentioned to council before, we are planning to install a signalized crosswalk across Versing Falls, just to the east of Versing Falls Bridge, which will create that safer passage from Douglas Avenue, again, into Lower West and, completely bypassing Sims Corner. So with this off-road connection, again, you can see the real connections being made for people who want to, again, avoid the vehicles. So the overall project is in that 400 to 500 meter length. We're going to be doing detailed design now, so the entire exact route and exact length will be determined during detailed design. It will include about 15 lights along this section of off-road path and trailheads at each end of the section being constructed. And again, as I mentioned, the connection to existing sidewalks, which is important for all modes of transportation. And so, yeah, like I said, detailed design will be completely started immediately. With construction by 2025. We're going to work as hard as we can to get some of it constructed this year, but likely this section will be constructed in 2025. So the overall funding envelope for this project is, again, incredible, 60% coming from the federal government. So over $800,000 federal money coming for this particular project, and a little less than $700,000 from the city of St. John, and the total project's about $1.5 million in cost. So before you this evening is the actual agreement with the federal government. It'll, again, start this project rolling and get this funding unlocked. And so the recommendation before you is to endorse that agreement and allow it to be signed off and get the project started. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. O'Reilly? I don't see any, but I want to say that's fantastic news because that's two components of the passage in tonight's kit, which makes a real difference. And the Lower West Side, ever since the highway's gone through there, it's always felt disconnected from even itself of the west side. So this connecting it back to Harbor is interesting. It's great because those two neighborhoods would have grown up on either side of the port, which was the heartbeat of the city for many, many years. So it's nice to have the two of us connected again, I think. So great work. Thanks, Tim. All right, Councillor Hickey, over to you.
I was just going to offer quick comments about how excited I am for this, because this is one I know Tim and his team have been working on for a long time. And I think, Tim, you referenced the recreation side of Harbor Passage, but I think this is really that start and transition into the commuting side of Harbor Passage and how important this is to really connect what is, like you said, Your Worship, what has always been a pretty isolated part of the city from an active transportation perspective. And while the connection isn't in my ward, it connects my ward. So that's what I'm really excited about.
It's true. Councillor Ogden.
Tim, good work, and good work on everybody's behalf.
Put this thing on. Hold on there, Councillor, for 1 second. We're just going to get your mic on. No, it should be red. There we go.
Oh, okay. Tim, and great work, and Wayne Long did great work on this. I want to thank you all. One recommendation I'd like to make is years ago, there's posts on Reversing Falls Bridge. The posts are still there, and they used to have flowers on them. And DTI took them down. And recognizing they took out our marigolds on the north end ramp too. But I still think we could do something there to fix up what the Reversing Falls Bridge looks like. And that you could put, I saw it in a bridge in Europe, is you could put solar lights on the places where we had our posts for the flowers. We never got an explanation of why the flowers were taken down, but they added to that whole walk experience. So I would like you to think about solar lights onto those posts that already exist. And the bridge itself, the rail, needs a lot of paint. So I hope you can add those two when you're talking to DTI. Thank you.
Yeah, we do a regular discussion with provincial transportation, so we'll take that into advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Tim. All right, so I need someone to move the recommendation. I mean, the deputy and Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. And thanks again to the federal government for their component there. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 12.2, Housing Accelerator Fund.
Okay, this one's going over to Acting Commissioner Pofferoff.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship and members of council, this evening we're pleased to present the city's approved Housing Accelerator Fund Action Plan. This plan will implement the $9.18 million in federal government funding to the city, which was publicly announced last week by Prime Minister Trudeau. The plan proposes 8 initiatives which are intended to help the city accelerate the creation of new housing over the next 3 years. The initiatives and resourcing plan associated with them are now under development. Housing Manager Andy Reid is here tonight to present the approved action plan to be received by Council for information, as the public we know is eager to learn more about this exciting announcement. Over to you, Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Andy, for being here.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's felt like we've lived with the Housing Accelerator Fund for a while now. Last we were before you was this past July with the application. It's good in light of last week's announcement. It's out there. It's now public. So now it's time to really get to work. I did want to present tonight the details of our Housing Accelerator Fund action plan, just for public information. Our agreement, of course, is signed. We are on board to collaborate with the federal government with this funding. So the objectives of this funding are to create greater supply of housing at an accelerated pace and enhance certainty in the approvals and building process. This means essentially doing everything we can at the municipal level to ensure that we're permitting units and we're increasing the number of units we're permitting so we can increase supply. The priorities of the fund are to support development of complete communities, and support the development of affordable, inclusive, equitable, and diverse communities, as well as to support the development of low carbon and climate resilient communities. So with these priorities and with the action plan, we do see an incredible amount of alignment, crossover with our existing plans and strategies, our municipal plan. This action plan will help us expedite the implementation of our Affordable Housing Action Plan, which was a 5-year plan we adopted in October 2022, as well as to implement actions through the city's 10-year strategic plan. The funding amount is $9.18 million, which is made in 4 annual disbursements. We now have the first disbursement, and they will be advanced annually until January 2027. The commitments in exchange for the funding, what our targets are that we're obliged to permit a total of 1,124 new units between now and 2026, the end of 2026. And of those, there are targets for specific housing forms as well as housing affordability. 9% of that overall growth target should be affordable units. So the initiatives themselves, within the plan, there are 8 initiatives, and I'll just go over those at a bit of a high level. The first initiative is the North End Plan, and that's part of the comprehensive secondary plan initiative that's to get underway this year. It would include a community improvement plan for the existing urban neighborhoods within the North End to revitalize those areas, an infrastructure monitoring program, an infill roadmap for those areas, along with the infill strategy. The second initiative, Housing Concierge, this initiative specifically targets basically the construction of purpose-built rentals, so apartment buildings. To increase the number of purpose-built rentals, the initiative will look at the One-Stop Development Shops Project Champion initiative to really take into consideration any development that's coming down the pipeline from pre-application into the permitting process, ongoing development and sector engagement, and new incentives to really increase the number of those projects that might be might be close to pulling the trigger on a permit and just need a little bit of help to get over the finish line. The third initiative targets gentle density, or what's often referred to as the missing middle, through an incentive program for specific, again, building forms, townhouses, semi-detached, secondary suites. As well, there is a program in here for the type of developer who might be a first-time developer, to help them get started by introducing schematic plans. Those would be a certain building form that's pre-reviewed in a sense, so less sort of puzzle pieces to fit together for someone looking to put together a small development. And there are subdivision amendments within this initiative as well to help facilitate that kind of development. The fourth initiative really targets enlarging the capacity of the nonprofit sector and the private development sector to deliver affordable units. And that's primarily by replenishing our affordable housing grant program, as well as finding ways to enhance that. That could mean earlier disbursement, for instance, really looking to capitalize on affordable housing. The fifth initiative, leveraging land, takes stock of all city-owned land, but also underutilized land. It could be land owned by other levels of government, to really take a proactive approach and connect the dots with a land disposition policy and with interested developers, nonprofit and otherwise, looking to take advantage of those opportunities. The sixth initiative is a very important one, both to the city and the federal government, and that's looking at the zoning bylaw, what further improvements. I believe our planning team's already been to PAC and council at least 2 or 3 times with housekeeping amendments related to housing. So this looks at really ratcheting that up even more, making sure that our bylaws are really working for the current housing environment. So what that means in practice will be permitting at least 4 units as of right in fully serviced residential zones, at least through the zoning bylaw, and aligning our plans, our bylaws to permit densification where appropriate in intensification areas, proximity to post-secondary institutions, a number of other amendments that will be looked at, including increasing height, secondary suites. So really looking to build off a lot of the steps that have been taken already through our really relatively new zoning bylaw and the steps for the one-stop development shop. The second to last initiative, e-permitting, will follow our current major project, our ERP project, but this will really look at potential enhancements for facing customer service. And the final initiative, governance reform, is really intended to look at the long-term governance model for how we're dealing with housing in the city, selection and implementation of that model once we've done our proper due diligence, our research on that. So the announcement was made last week. We're already starting to get some inquiries for folks, So talking about development incentives, we know that the spring season will be soon fast upon us. It's already here. So just to highlight with respect to those initiatives 2, 3, and 4, which all have a major component of incentives. We realize there are challenges in St. John right now, as elsewhere, with cost of construction, interest rates. So incentives are a large package or a large part of this Housing Accelerator Fund action plan, and probably constitutes something over half of how that funding will be used. So just stay tuned for more information, but we're aiming to launch those programs in the spring of this year. When you look at the overall timeline of these initiatives, everything essentially needs to get underway this year. E-permitting won't start till next year, and then of course all spending will have to be spent within the 3-year limit. So the recommendation before you tonight, this is an informational presentation, so really excited, again, pleased to be here with the successful funding and fill the public in on some of the details from the action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Reid? Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Kudos to you I can't imagine it's an easy gig to have to follow up the Prime Minister and offer remarks. So kudos at the press conference last week.
Yeah. How did I get in that order anyway? I should have went first.
Well, you were the closing act, and it was great.
Okay, that's another way to look at it.
It was great. Thanks very much, Andy. Very excited by this. And of course, Council's also endorsed the Housing Accelerator Fund 10 best practices that we've outlined, and there's a lot going on here that will lay out what our strategy is moving forward. And I'd just say, at first this strategy didn't have unanimous endorsement of Council. I hope this is a sign to say that it will from here. I think what is clear is that this strategy is what's going to get St. John out of the housing crisis and is going to address the need in this community effectively. And this is the strategy to do it. And I hope that from this point forward, all of Council is on board with that. And this continues to receive unanimous support moving forward. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy?
Thank you, Your Worship. Great job, Andy. I mean, this is an exciting development here. Like the 8 initiatives that you have check off all the boxes for a successful initiative, really for housing initiatives. And I'm particularly excited that we've got 2, 3, and 4 that are going to be on the road this spring. That's quick. And so when we talk about rapid housing, I guess it doesn't get any quicker than that. But no, really good job. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Radwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Andy Reid. The great news, once again, I mean, we have to scream to the rooftops when we get these great things coming. There's been a lot of questions about the 101 units that would be basically affordable units, and a lot of questions that seem to be out in the public, so I'll ask you, how come, or help me understand why there's not more focus on affordable housing units? I have another little question of mine, but I mean, there's many different areas that we need, but why is there not more focus there?
Through your worship to the councillor, it's a very good question. So in our affordable housing action plan, we actually set out targets for the percentage of new construction we want to be affordable units. We know that's more than 9%. 9% is the minimum target. So that's the minimum target Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, would look to ensure we're meeting. But our full intention would be to exceed that target through these initiatives. The Housing Accelerator Fund, it really is, it's about increasing overall supply. So it's about both the private sector and the nonprofit sector. But we have a affordable housing action plan, and that's really our guiding document for targeting even more construction of affordable units. We know 9%, 101 units is certainly not enough over the next 3 years. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, some of these e-permitting, making things easier, obviously, it's all going to help for sure. My other question is the 4 units of right in fully serviced residential zones. So just clarify for me, does that mean like an R1 or an R2 where you can have 1 unit or 2 units in the right area as long as it's fully serviced? They could now have up to 4 without going to rezoning.
Through your worship to the councillors, that's correct. So it's something that's you're seeing really everywhere across the country right now. Is a bit of planners probably don't ordinarily get a lot of interest in zoning bylaw except when something affects a neighbor and they come out. But this is an issue you're hearing about it everywhere: exclusionary zoning. So it's really just eliminating rules such as limiting neighborhoods to single-family homes only, and relying rather on standards. There are different performance standards, so the size of a lot to the design of a building. So it doesn't mean that neighborhoods will all of a sudden be dense, zones. It's just that we have standards in place that make sense. The livability, the look and feel of neighborhoods shouldn't change, and any of those changes related to the zoning bylaw, of course, are going to go through a full public process. We're just scoping that project, but we're really looking to just bring ourselves into best practice. And St. John, our neighborhoods are already, we have a lot of great examples of how you can live with 4 more units in your vicinity. So we have a lot to draw on there already.
Yeah, we have some big houses with some big footprint that could certainly accomplish that. Any idea what the timeline would be, I forget, on that piece of it?
So that one, it's definitely on the radar. It's of interest to see prioritized through the federal government. That one it has to get underway this year, so it should be getting underway in the summer at the latest. But that one, there's definitely interest to see some motion on that soon.
Thank you. My apologies, Mayor. I see I'm over, but thank you.
All fine. Okay, that looks like that's it for questions for you, Andy. I'll just say, wrapping up, that thanks for being here. It's all wonderful news. $9.18 million is fantastic. Thanks to the federal government. I know when the Prime Minister was in town, he announced we were the 22nd Housing Accelerator Fund that had been announced. And so that's pretty impressive as well, but I don't know how many there will be. I know that fund is oversubscribed, so we were fortunate to get that money. Our own plans will certainly benefit from that. And I guess the councillor asked about exclusionary zoning. It's interesting because it's even difficult. We see it at our own table of trying to move that missing middle into neighborhoods to create those complete neighborhoods that have rental units in them and single units in them, and a little bit of variety so that you can get a variety of housing and housing that fits everyone. Not everyone wants to own a house. Not everyone can afford to own a house. And as I see with my own friends, they are looking to get out of the housing ownership business and more into apartments, and a downsizing a bit. So I guess we all need to be on board ourselves here as the team to help move those into neighborhoods as well. We need to be supportive of that because oftentimes they are on connector routes and they do have transit and they have lots of other things as well that would be helpful in creating that neighborhood and sustaining the neighborhood. So yeah, it's great to see. Anyways, so if there are no more questions, I'll just take a recommendation to receive for information. So Deputy Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is under general correspondence. It's item 15.1 on your agenda. Dragonfly Events Planning, Empowering Women in Business 2024 request to present, and there's a recommendation to refer this to the clerk to schedule.
Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Redwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is 15.2, a letter from St. John Horticultural Association requesting to present. And there is an update to the recommendation in this. The CAO has requested that the recommendation be refer this to the CAO for follow-up.
Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Norton on the question. Councillor Ogden, over to you.
Yes, I met with them, and I suggested that they send this letter in.
But I am interested in hearing what they have to say. I agree with the recommendation about going to the CAO, but I also would like to hear what they have to say. The potential's huge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 15.3, letter from YMCA, request for proclamation with the recommendation to refer to the clerk to prepare the proclamation.
Refer to the clerk. The deputy, Councillor Norton on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Next is 15.4, and that's a letter with respect to not-for-profit organizations, requests to present, and the recommendation is to receive this for information.
Receive for information, Councillor Sullivan. Deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 15.5, Age-Friendly Active Communities NB, request to present. Recommendation from staff is refer to Growth Committee to schedule a presentation.
Deputy, Councillor Norton on the question. Councillor Redwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to quickly let the Growth Committee know that I completely support us becoming an age-friendly community. We actually deemed that. I know that we try to always be that, but when it comes to planning infrastructure, designing policies, strat plans, programs, anything else, we should certainly be always doing this. We have 38% of our populations are seniors as well, so very important. So anyway, you'll have my support if you bring this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is a letter from a citizen with respect to shelters and Loyalist Burial Ground with a recommendation to receive this for information.
Councillor Norton and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. I will say on that one that we are doing a strategy for encampments, and so we will add those letters to that team for their building of the strategy. Next item, City Clerk.
And next, we're into the items that came from Committee of the Whole. The first one is 17.1, and it's for a request for expression of interest at 21 Troop Street. The recommendation is that the city deem the property at 21 Troop Street comprised of PID 424-283 and 550-55230 as surplus to its needs.
Okay, I'll take, I got the deputy on that and Councillor Norton on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
And the next item is the Committee of the Whole recommendation, 17.2, with respect to the 2024 Community Center and Neighborhood Service Agreement renewal. And the recommendation reads as follows: resolved that the parties enter a new agreement in consideration for the annual grant between the City of St. John and the Corporation of the Anglican Parish of St. Mark, St. John, Waterloo Village Neighborhood Group for a period of 3 years from January 1, 2024 until December 31, 2026, as outlined in Appendix A of the 2024 Community Center and Neighborhood Service Agreement Renewals Report submitted to Committee of the Whole on January 22nd, and that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign all necessary documentation. Next, that it resolved that the parties renew the agreement in consideration for the annual sum of $54,375, HST included, between the City of St. John and the YMCA of Greater St. John for services at Milledgeville Community Center for a period of 3 years from January 1, 2024 until December 31, 2026, as outlined in Appendix B of the 2024 Community Center and Neighborhood Service Agreement Renewal Report submitted to Committee of the Whole on January 22, 2024, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all necessary documentation, and resolved that the City of St. John retains the funds resulting from the terminated agreement with HDC for future consideration of proposals for services or projects that aim to alleviate the effects of poverty within St. John neighborhoods.
Thank you, City Clerk. That was a lot. I got Councillor Lowe and Councillor Norton on that one. On the question, to renew their agreements. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next one is shorter. It is 17.3, and it's St. John Energy FCM loan and grant request. And the resolution is that subject to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities approval of St. John Energy's Community Energy Fund application, the approval of the definitive loan and guarantor agreements by the Board of St. John Energy, and the approval of definitive loan and guarantor agreements by the city. The city is prepared to guarantee the loan portion of St. John Energy's potential funding under the CEF funding program and recognizes that doing so will require the city to be an additional signatory to SJE's FCM loan and grant agreement as guarantor, and two, that the mayor be authorized to send a letter to FCM in this respect.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Final item from Committee of the Whole is 17.4, and this one reads as follows. It's with respect to code of conduct complaint, and that the city enter into a settlement agreement with Brent Harris and Joanna Killen in the form presented to Committee of the Whole at its January 22nd, 2024 meeting, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the said agreement. And further, that Brent Harris and Joanna Killen be reinstated to their respective boards and committees in the capacity of members of such boards and committees, from which duties they were temporarily relieved by decision of council at its October 3rd, 2023 meeting.
Deputy and Councillor Lowe on the question. Councillor Redwan.
Thank you, Mayor. I am voting against this tonight just because I didn't want to take this step. And I do believe that, personally believe that Councillor Killen and Harris had their best intentions. And although it's new.
Councillor?
Yes?
I believe that what is in the statement is what we can state.
Yeah, that's correct. And I do hope that we review the code of conduct.
Okay, on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, over to you, Councillor Lowe. Motion to adjourn.
Your Worship, could we just clarify the vote of Councillor Radwan? A nay vote? Thank you.
Oh, okay. Councillor Lowe, over to you. Motion to adjourn. Okay. Councillor Norton, you're seconding it since he's your wingman. All right. Thanks, everyone. Back to close for a few minutes so we can finish up in there. Thank you.